In my last video, I showed you how these criminals are working with central bankers in order to thieve all of our property as a part of their Great Reset. In this video, I'm going to show you how the exact same bankers who are out to steal our property are also responsible for the catastrophe in Palestine. Not only is this satanic banking family responsible for genocide, but they are blatantly doing a land grab right in front of all our eyes. They're clearing the land of Gaza, and the only good thing we can take from this is knowing that when we unite together to deal with this issue in the correct way, there is an unlimited fund for the rebuilding of Gaza and Palestine into the world's most exotic and luxurious seaside city on the face of the earth. There is literally an unlimited fund for this project. Now let's get into it. Thanks for joining me. The first point that I want to make about what's happening in Palestine, I want to bring your attention onto the cause of the problem, the source of the evil that's going on there, and that is the Rothschild family. A lot of people are talking about Benjamin Netanyahu and the fascists around him, which is all very well, but they are there for a reason. They are there as front men to keep the Rothschilds back in the shadows. I am convinced that the only way to have these puppet politicians thrown under the bus is by exposing the source of evil, the Rothschild family, exposing their evil to the world, and they will throw the politicians under the bus for us. If we start getting hot on their trail, they will serve us up, the politicians, on a platter to keep our attention away from them. And so how is it that these Rothschilds are able to accomplish the things that they do? Because what I'm about to share with you is, I've analysed how it is that they get power, and I want to share some thoughts about how it is that we can mimic that. We can do what they do, and we can actually have far greater power because we don't invert things. We want to use our consciousness for good, which means we will have the power of the real God. God, the creator God, is on our side. God can only help those who are actively working to help themselves. When we take actions to save ourselves, as I've said many times, God will be the wind in our sails. And so when it comes to seeing a solution to what's happening, when it comes to bringing a solution about, you have to first see it. You have to imagine it. It's absolutely necessary to be able to visualize the outcome that you want to experience for that outcome to happen. It can't happen if you don't first see your goal. The most important thing when it comes to changing our world, our own personal world, like if you want something to happen, you set a goal and then you take the step-by-step process that you need to take to make that goal manifest into reality. Nothing happens in your own personal life or in the world without setting a goal. The esoteric teachings, like the mystery traditions, the knowledge that all these satanic oligarchs have that they invert and use for evil, talks about how everything in this world first has to start off as a thought. Everything starts with thought. And we are failing ourselves and each other by not setting the right intentions and putting that out into the world. When somebody says something like, "I don't see any hope," there will be no hope. You have to first see what you want to happen in your mind, get enough people seeing that vision, and it happens. I've experienced this in my own life countless times. I'll be happy to talk about that in the future. But for this point right here, what I want to get across to you is what's happening in Israel is happening because it's an intention. It's the intention of people like Netanyahu and those who work around him. But on a much higher level, it's the intention of the Zionists and specifically the Rothschild family. This clip I'm about to play for you is from the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, where Jacob Rothschild is going to explain why the Balfour Declaration was addressed to his family.
Can I add a few words to the ones you heard earlier about why the Balfour Declaration was addressed to the second Lord Rothschild? His father was the first Lord Rothschild, and he was the first Jew to be admitted to the House of Lords. And through his contacts, he opened the gates of Whitehall for Theodor Herzl, the founder of modern Zionism. He met Chaim Weizmann, who converted him to Zionism, and he was soon seen as the lay leader of the Jewish community, which was why the declaration was addressed to him. Our family has therefore been involved with Palestine and Israel for nearly 150 years. And tonight, in the row there are 3 of our children and 3 grandchildren. So there's a good chance, my hope, that we will remain committed for another 150 years and beyond.
So there you heard how Jacob Rothschild and his family set their intentions for the future. In this case, for the future of Israel. I don't want to say anything disrespectful about anyone in the independent media. These people all inspire me, and I thank God that we have them. And I'm not doing this to be negative. This is for the purpose of improving. And I'm making a point here that when you want to change things in the world, it has to start with a thought. It has to start with an intention. I've shown you an example of how the Rothschilds set their intentions. They are masters of setting their intentions and making it happen. We, the people, we fail ourselves with statements like this. Have a listen.
This is a rather optimistic question, in my opinion. Some anticipate that the culmination of this conflict will be a Palestinian state, at least according to 1967, because of international pressure. What are your thoughts on the possibility of this?
I don't see it. I don't see it. I wish that was true, but I don't see it. I'm really, really scared. I'm really scared. Partly.
If you don't see it, it won't happen. And of course, I'm not only talking to Chris Hedges. All of us. We have to be able to see the future we want to see in our minds and then share that vision with each other. Talk about it. The words that we put out into the world. This reality, this physical, material reality that we live in is not all physical. It's not just as it seems. Our thoughts and our intentions have a huge impact on what actually manifests in the physical world. And that's why it's so important to never say things like that. But all is not lost. That's just one statement. I can find you dozens of great statements, even in that same video. Chris shared an awesome statement. I'll play it for you.
In terms of Palestine, from the river to the sea, a secular state where everybody has equal rights, period.
And here's my personal favorite from that video.
Even in the French Revolution, you had the clergy and aristocrats had their heads severed and were carried around on pikes through the streets of Paris. This is what happens when you brutalize a people over a long period of time.
I may not get to walk the streets of London with the severed head of Jacob Rothschild, but I can certainly set an intention. I set this intention long ago. I want to play a role in bringing an end to this satanic cabal that is ruling over the world and draining us, draining our life force energy, taxing us to death, corrupting all our governments, holding back free energy and even the abundant energy that we have, this suppression and oppression of our species. I want to play a role in bringing justice to the monsters who are inflicting that on us. That's my intention. And we can all set that intention. We can all get involved in whatever way we can. And that's what I want to share with you here. I'll just share an idea, a way that I believe we can bring an end to the genocide that is happening to the Palestinian people. And have a secular state from the river to the sea. That's the most logical outcome. That's what should have already happened long ago. And the reason it hasn't happened is because the puppet master, who is controlling everything that happens there, is hiding in the shadows, and nobody's even pointing the finger at him. And this is the key here, is nothing good is going to happen for the poor unfortunate people of Palestine as long as Jacob Rothschild is able to hide behind Netanyahu and these other goons that are the front men. If we want the front men to fall under the bus, we have to point our attention on the puppet master who's hiding in the shadows. I think most of the people in the independent media know what I'm about to share with you, but I'm going to share it because I believe that talking about this is how we can have, say, Netanyahu, for example, thrown under the bus. The Knesset and the Supreme Court of Israel is owned by Jacob Rothschild, or by the Rothschild family. In case you don't know that, I'll just let Jacob explain it to you.
Towards the end of his life, my cousin James, Jimmy as he was known, donated the Knesset to the State of Israel, and his wife Dorothy, we called her Dolly, continued his work through the foundation Yad Hanadib, in Hebrew the benefactor, and it was her idea for our foundation to support the building of the Supreme Court. She entrusted me with the chairmanship of the foundation.
So there you heard it. The cousin James, who was known as Jimmy, donated the Knesset to the State of Israel.
My cousin James, Jimmy as he was known, donated the Knesset to the State of Israel.
And it was their Rothschild Foundation that funded the building of the Supreme Court.
And it was her idea for our foundation to support the building of the Supreme Court.
Now, that's all you need to know that Netanyahu is never going to be brought to trial before the Supreme Court, because he is actually carrying out the orders that Zionist Rothschild wants him to carry out. I should add, when the people give the authority to a class of people to print the stuff that we have to work for, when we give them that power, they eventually will buy up everything. The Rothschild family goes back hundreds of years. This has been going on for such a long time that I would make the claim that they have already bought up everything of value. Anybody who's ever tried to take a bank to court will tell you that the banks own the courts. These people own all the courts. I don't have the documented evidence to prove that to you, but you've just got to think, they print the stuff that we work for. They also get our taxes. There's so many ways that these people harvest our life force energy. Everything has a price. Do you think that there's politicians and judges that haven't sold out yet? Obviously not. Look at the world. Look at the way everything's happening. These people own all the courts. Now, so if we know that Netanyahu is never going to stand trial in the Israeli Supreme Court, and we want to see these banking cartels brought to justice, but they own all the courts, then how are we ever going to bring an end to this? Well, let's remember the extraordinary freedom movement that exists in the UK. Hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of motivated people who are right now watching on as this genocide appears to be unstoppable. The only reason it's unstoppable is because we are not organized. We haven't got a vision, a path that we can all get on board with and make it happen. But that can change any day. All it takes is for an idea to be shared and for everybody to get on board and want to share that idea. And I think putting together a common law court trial in the UK to bring the Rothschild family to justice, to make them answer for what's happening to the Palestinian people, to make them answer for how it is that they can justify being able to live off of our backs. How is it that they get to profit from the counterfeiting of the currency that we all have to work for? They can be brought before a court, maybe not the entrenched court that is already corrupted, but the people can put a court together. And of course that takes the police, who are currently serving a corrupted state. Many of them have their minds programmed by the TV and they don't even know that they're serving a corrupt state, but they are, and we can show them that. Look at the amount of people that are alive and ready to get active in the UK. There is no shortage of motivated people in the UK. And when they go and talk to their local police and say to them, how long are you going to let this genocide go on? We want you to assemble a court. We don't want to operate under this maritime system anymore. We want to see a common law court, and we want to see the Rothschild family brought into it. How long do you think the British people could demand that of their police before their police would have to say, well, do we really need to do this job for a monthly paycheck when this Rothschild family has literally trillions of dollars stashed away? Why should they have all that money? It's not theirs. It's stolen from the backs of innocent people. When they're brought to justice, the fund that is available there will absolutely just turn the entire world upside down, but it has to start from the UK. It has to start with the Rothschild family, because they're the criminals who are responsible for what's happening today. It's in our faces. If the judicial system in the UK is too far corrupted to actually deal with it, which clearly it is because the genocide is ongoing, the police, the armed people who have the ability to put courts together, to get rid of all the rotten people and put together common law courts, courts of the people. Let the Rothschild family be judged before a court of the people. They have to answer to the people, because it's the people that they're enslaving. So what I'm saying here is, if the independent media were to work together to shine a light on this demonic Rothschild family and spread the word throughout all of those freedom-minded individuals, all the freedom-minded men and women of London who we just saw in that footage, spread the word throughout all of those people that what's happening in Gaza is not going to end until they come together and organise a common law court system that they can bring the Rothschild family in front of to make them answer. When that happens, when the British people are mobilised and they get through to the policemen and women who are just following orders and dragging the world into hell, when they actually get through to them, when they work together to get through to them, that the people that are giving them orders are bought and paid for. And at the top level, the people who give them orders are being controlled by an anti-human satanic force that is driving our species even deeper into slavery than we already are. That's the agenda. To anybody who doesn't know, that's the agenda. That's where we're going. And when the British people are mobilised to get through to the people who are wrongfully following orders so that they understand the obligation that is on them as a human being, you are obligated to keep your species alive. I mean, that is just an instinct that we should all have. And our species is being destroyed by these monsters. So those policemen and women who are just following orders and not knowing any better, they're still human. They can be reached. And it has to start with the British people, because you haven't only got the Rothschild family, you've got the Windsors, these fake royals who are another mob that are just enslaving the people, harvesting children. And I mean, the sick stuff that these people... Look into the work of Kevin Arnett. He's got evidence against the British royal family. The only reason they're still free is because they own all the police. But whatever money the police are taking, it's peanuts compared to what's available to them if they actually do the right thing. And so, if the independent media were to work together to spread some thoughts, put out some narratives about the truth about the Rothschilds, about the fact that it is the police officers of London who are actually on the front line of global slavery. If they would just do the right thing, they would be the ones to trigger off the dominoes that would allow for police all around the world to be inspired by their righteous action, to stop following orders and take out the hierarchy of these monsters. And it will be the beginning of a golden age. We all have voices. We can make this happen. And I believe we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to each other, and we owe it to this oppressed people who have suffered for... It's more than 100 years this has been going on, this constant oppression and this mowing the lawn, this regular culling that they do. I mean, the state needs to be ended, and it's not going to be ended until the people who control it are made to answer for what they're doing. Keep in mind, this will trigger a domino effect. These satanic banking cartels, these greedy monsters that are throughout Europe and the United States, and I don't know who their figureheads are in Australia, but I know we have a central bank, and I know they're destroying our currency, and I know they're filling Australian minds with absolute bullshit on the nightly news. They can all be brought to justice. They must be brought to justice. And I can't be the only one saying this. We need everybody saying this. We need everybody feeling this. We have to all feel the need for justice, see what justice will look like. What will it look like? It will look like a court of the people, for the people. that is based on God's moral law, natural law, the law that says we have the right to engage in any actions other than murder, rape, assault, trespass, coercion, theft, and deception. They're the only 7 sins that we're not allowed to commit. Every sin fits into those categories. Every real crime fits into those categories. If you can't fit it into those categories, it's your right. It's your right to do what you want with your body, as long as you're not harming anybody else or stealing anything from anybody else. These are the human rights, the basic, simple human rights that everybody needs to understand, most especially those armed people in our communities who follow orders from this satanic cabal. If we don't get in front of this, it's not going to be long before they get orders again that are going to impact all of us. And I've talked about this a lot in video 72, about the economic crash that's coming. If you haven't seen that, please watch it. But that's all I want to say about the topic of Palestine, Gaza, the genocide, and what I believe to be the most realistic solution to it. Here's a 1-minute video clip showing the type of content that I would like to be uploading here as soon as I figure out how the copyright system works on YouTube. This 20-minute documentary explains everything that the police and military need to know about who's controlling them and who they're protecting, and why it's actually their fault that the world is in the state that it's in, because they are protecting these people. Have a listen.
Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
The reason is obvious, because it was the Rothschilds' money, power, and influence that made the British government fall in line. Years later, Britain kept their promise to the Rothschilds and provided a large piece of land to start Israel. And in May 1948, the State of Israel was officially created. Although this was good news, the Rothschilds were just getting started. What the Rothschilds did next was even more impressive. They invested millions of dollars into Israel, building schools, roads, and everything needed to turn that piece of land into a beautiful country. James Rothschild single-handedly paid for Israel's Congress building, while Dorothy D. Rothschild paid for Israel's Supreme Court building